a fire. Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. Listen up now, because we're never dropping now. Beat the odds, beat the big house. The brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than ourselves, we won't let the world burn away, burn away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To play, haters face the world's mistakes. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. And we feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To play, haters face the world's mistakes. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. What you think about when you're born into a fire? Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. Listen up now, because we're never dropping now. Beat the odds, beat the big house. The brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than ourselves, we won't let the world burn away, burn away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To play, haters face the world's mistakes. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. And we feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To play, haters face the world's mistakes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Making an Impact. No, this is not NXT tonight, and no, it's not taking over, but I do have Ed with me. How are you, Ed?
I'm shelling out for those big money contracts here, man.
I'm gonna charge him to Cody for not being here, okay? This is the
That's
only way I'm
fine.
paying you.
As long as I get paid, I don't care who pays me.
Well, I'm gonna blame it on Cody. So yeah, for those of you that haven't noticed, Cody isn't here tonight. He went to a top talent show, so he ditched me again. But I guess it'll be even when I ditch him to watch Scream 6, so we should be fine. But yeah, thank you, Ed, for being here tonight with me and talking about Impact and not having me alone tonight. I appreciate you. Um,
Yes.
I know you didn't get to watch it, but I still wanted to discuss a little bit of it. Starting with making an impact, but before the impact, it was Speedball versus Rosh thing. This is just a way to build up of what happened with Speedball last weekend, getting called out by Gresham. I like the match was really quick, to be honest. Like it felt like it quicker than what it was. But we did have a lot of interference by Shera there helping Rosh thing as the match was happening. There was a point that it was funny seeing it because he was moving the ropes, so Steve couldn't do the ultimate weapon, and even people pointed out to the referee, and she had to move him out of there too. But it's just an easy way for people to get that win and just respond to Gresham that he's accepting his challenge to go against him or no surrender. What do you think about Gresham, like Speedball answering Gresham's challenge?
I mean, Speedball versus Gresham signed me up. I mean, it's going to be a great wrestling match. Two guys that don't like Gresham has a character. I'm not sure how much he's developing it in this Impact, but over the years in Ring of Honor and everywhere else he's been, he kind of has this. I'm one of the greatest wrestlers in the world. I'm going to prove it. And throwing that in with the octopus that he calls himself, it builds to a character, which is a little bit better than Mike Bailey, who's just, I'm a really good pro wrestler. Let me show you how good of a pro wrestler I am. Don't get me wrong, I love Mike Bailey. I think he's ultra talented. I just want the charisma that's there to come out, because when you see him having fun and when he doesn't care, he is so funny and charismatic, and he can be all of those things. And I just want more of that because I think he's a really entertaining person. I've watched his Twitch streams. He's great. Him and Vader are delightful together. Friday Night Speedball, when they were doing it before, was a delight to watch. Him on the Impact throwback whatever wrestling thing as the guy with the baguette. He's fantastic. I just wish he could bring some of that personality to the TV screen.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. Um, well, to go to the official start of the show, we'd start with Cardona arriving to the venue, and as he's there, he's like, "Oh, what's your name?" And he's greeted by a guy taking him to the dressing room, and he's like, "Well, I'm Matt Cardona. I'm in the main event versus Joe Hendry," and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'll take you there." So he takes him to a dressing room that has like cocktails and is like nicely like divided for him. And he's like, "Oh, this is amazing! Like Scott the War finally heard me." And then he's like, "Yeah, well, here you go, Mr. Hendry." And the guy and Cardona goes, "What?" He goes, "Oh, I thought you said your name was like Joe Hendry." He's like, "No, I'm Matt Cardona." He's like, "Oh, okay, never mind. I'll take you to your dressing room." And he just opens the door and takes him to this like kind of closet or like kitchen back in the back of the kitchen, whatever that was.
Yep,
And he's
closet.
like, "Well, here you'll get changed." And he just closes the door. He's like, "But there's no cocktails or anything here." He just like leaves them there, which is I think a funny way to start the impact. I didn't know it was gonna start that way, to be honest. But it just adds a little bit of more to what's happening between Joe Hendry and Mark Cardona. Did you have any thoughts on that part?
Yeah, I'm a whole lot more interested to see Matt Cardona versus the security of the Impact building than I am to see Matt Cardona versus Tyrus at enough said.
Oh, true.
Because
I haven't thought
I,
about that.
I've been seeing the things for it. It's like it's sold out, and I'm like, that's great. Nobody's gonna watch because it's fucking Tyrus, and nobody cares about Tyrus.
I completely forgot about that even happening.
Like it's sad because him in the NWA was a really fun thing, and I think him in Impact has been a great job for both him and for Impact. Even though he was hurt for a while of it and he really didn't get the best out of him, I still think he's brought a lot to Impact, and especially we'll talk about more about what they talked about with him in Impact in the main event. But Cardona's perfect for stuff like this. They should do more of this because he's really, really funny in these types of roles. And Barry's right. I'd rather... No, you know what, Barry? No, I would not rather see Tyrus versus an angry customer in McDonald's. Because I don't want to see Tyrus ever. Tyrus is the problem in that match, not Matt Cardona. Cardona in NWA is fantastic. Him versus Nick Aldis is great stuff. Him versus Tim Storm was really good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff in the NWA. Not that, you know, Corgan thinks that women can draw, and if he doesn't think women can draw, guess what? The Hex is going to come here and prove you wrong.
Yeah.
No, Cardona's fantastic. I love Cardona. He's super funny. And I like how this rib plays throughout the entire night. Like the idea that anybody would be dressing... By the way, the idea that anybody was dressing in the first dressing room too is the most, like, the funniest thing in the world.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too when I was like, is this really a dressing room though? It looks like a big room that was just divided into like different sections for I don't know what reason, because the meet and greet wasn't there.
I was going to say, it looks like the same room that the meet and greets would be in if they were like these interpersonal meet and greets where it's like you get 10 minutes to sit down and have like almost like the interview radio, like the radio meet and greets. That's what it felt more like, as opposed to like the actual meet and greets. It felt like a radio row type meet and greet where you have the champagne and the... I just can't wait for when we talk about Myers later on. It's fantastic.
Well, we have him now. We are a little bit of that part. We have Myers versus Dango to begin the show. This is part of the contenders match. The winner of this match ends up being in the fatal 4-way for No Surrender to be a one contender towards Josh or whoever wins the match, to be honest, at that point.
Right. Like, there's any chance Rich Swann wins that match.
Wait, you never know, but still, I just wanted to bring it up. It's the winner of Josh versus Rich Swann, just to put it like that. I feel like there was nothing like that really stood out to me in this one. It's just the part of like, I like how they mentioned during comments, it's like, Myers is focusing on this to become a one contender versus we have Cardona focusing on becoming a 2-time digital media champion because of the main event tonight. But yeah, just like, I like the parts of like Myers being a heel that he is. There's a part that he brings Dango to the outside and he leaves him there and he just goes inside and starts telling the referee to count. Like, it doesn't matter how he wins it, but he definitely wants to get that win. But yeah, I love, and there was a part also when Matt Rakewell was talking about the song, the Joe Hendry song, and he says, "I love a good song. That's what made me famous." And it just definitely made me laugh when he mentions things like that in commentary. But no surprise we have Myers winning this match. What were your thoughts on this one?
Okay, I'm gonna rant a little on Impact here for a minute. Impact, you have some of the most talented wrestlers in the entire world on your roster. You really do. There is no reason on God's green earth. Yeah, okay. See, Barry has the right here. This tournament would be good if it wasn't all mid-carders. The only two people who even deserve to be in this tournament are Eddie Edwards and Steve Macklin. I don't care. PCO is beyond... Like, he's great. He's great for what he is. But he doesn't belong in a world title picture. Mahabali Shera is fantastic. But he's as he said, he's a mid-carder. At best. At best, he's a mid-carder. This is something where you should have Bay and Austin. This is where you have Mike Bailey. This is where you have Kenny King. This is where you have Moose, since he doesn't really have much going on other than pestering Joe Hendry via Matt Cardona. You have all of these stars on this roster. And this tournament is Dirty Dango versus Myers. You have Mahabali Shera versus PCO. Next week you have the two biggest gimmies in the world when you have Heath and Rhino taking on Macklin and Eddie Edwards. Like, how is this your world championship, like, to get into a fatal 4-way? You might as well have just said, look, it's going to be Eddie Edwards versus Steve Macklin for the #1 contendership at No Surrender, and called it a day. At least then we would believe you when you say that all of these people have an opportunity to be the champion. Like, could you ever imagine WWE during a tournament and having, Mustafa Ali and Ricochet and people like that as potential world champions in a tournament? It's just, it's not believable. It's not.
Yeah.
It's one thing to win a tournament, but it's another thing to be the number one contender. Barry's coming in. To be honest, for Shera, mid-card would be a massive step up. I mean, I'm fine calling Mahabali Shera a mid-carder. He's been there for a while. He's really trying. He's not upper tier, but Mahabali Shera versus Joe Hendry could be a lot of fun. But I don't believe him in the slightest for winning anything. I didn't think he was going to beat PCO. I laughed when I told you I saw the graphic for this, and I asked what title are they going for, because I honestly thought it was for the digital media.
And I wanted to bring that up too because me going to the tapings when before the matches were announced, they kept saying the winner of this match is gonna go on a fatal four-way and no surrender to be the one contender for a championship. They didn't mention what championship, so I kept telling my dad, I was like, this is kind of weird because I'm like, they could go for any championship at this point because they're not mentioning which one it is. And it never went to my mind that this was for the heavyweight title. So I was like, that's weird. And then not only that, but seeing people like Heath and Rhino and Myers being involved, I kept thinking, where are they splitting up the tag teams and having them be in singles matches to be the number one contender for the tag team titles? I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. And they still didn't mention for what title it was for. Every time they said it's like, yeah, this is a number one contenders match. Is that it's a match to qualify for the four-way, but still that's all they said to us. They didn't specify which title, or they didn't say, oh, the winner of this match is going to go into the fatal four-way no surrender, and the winner of that faces Josh or Rich, whoever wins their match and no surrender. Nothing like that.
You had it right the first time.
So either way, they didn't say anything like in detail. So I thought that was really like, that's what made me think about it. And even when you said that, I laughed because that's why I crossed my mind too when I was there. And they mentioned, it's like, okay, what title is this for? Why is this such a mystery? So I thought it was pretty like interesting from that aspect because you're like thinking, they just gave us the matches. I was like, okay, I see this person winning. But I didn't know for what title though. So it's interesting thinking of the people that are involved in it now. But yeah,
think
it was
about
confusing.
It. On Raw, we've been having qualifying matches for the United States Elimination Chamber match. But you know what happened? When they announced those matches, they were all like, they beat it through your head over and over again. The winner of these matches all go into the Elimination Chamber to face Austin Theory. You knew going in what these matches were for. You knew what title they were going for. When the women did it on SmackDown to get into the women's Elimination Chamber match for a chance of the champion, it's like they told you over and over again, these women are going to an Elimination Chamber for a chance at, I believe it's Bianca Belair. Because Charlotte's spoken for WrestleMania. It's just, I'm not trying to compare, but at the same time, there's a reason why WWE knows what they're doing and does what they do. Yes, they beat you over the head 60 million times with the same information, but guess what? We know what storylines are leading to what storylines on Raw and SmackDown. We may not like it, we may think they're repetitive, but at least we know in the tag team title tournament, all roads lead to Usos. Just different things like that. You knew because you heard it 6 times in that tag team title match. The winner of this match gets a shot at the Usos next week. It wasn't a surprise. We knew exactly what titles, who the opponents were going to be, and what was on the line. Impact.
Yeah.
You've got the talent, but these are the things that you do that sabotage yourself. This is why people don't take you seriously when you put up a graphic, because you're not making it clear what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been different. Like, when they had the graphic for the 6-shooter match, like those people made sense to me for that world title. So that was like my thing of like, this is clearer compared to what we having with these matches. But either way, I don't know if they didn't want to spoil it to us that Swan is the one who had won the 6-shooter because we hadn't seen it by the time we did the tapings. So I know that was it, but still, it wasn't clear to begin with. It's like, I don't care if I get spoiled for it. I'm still going to watch it.
But
so
they could at least have said for the World Championship.
World title. Yeah, that's what I was hoping
for. You don't
for.
need to announce the opponent. You just need to say, these people are in a number 1 contendership for the World Championship. Boom. Mission done.
They just said for a championship.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, to move on from that now, this definitely explained a lot to me what was happening afterwards because it was Giselle and Jay just backstage, and she just spills like somebody's meal on the table, and she puts water in somebody's side. She's like, yeah, that's what I do. And then she gets confronted by Deanna, and she's like, well, for me, like, it was okay if you want to call yourself the Black Widow, but once you mention my best friend, then it is my business to be in here. So she's like, it's okay. Like, they start spilling. Diana spilled food on Giselle, and Santino comes in to interrupt, and he said, "Well, we're gonna make this match official for no surrender." I was like, "Oh, so that's what it takes? It's just a food spill? What the heck?" Um, but it just like this part, just the acting from Giselle was not great at all. Um, it was so cringe when I saw. I was like, yeah, this is not what I was hoping for. Like to be like how it builds up to this match specifically with Diana of all people. Just like, here, I'm gonna spill some food on you, so we have a match at No Surrender. That's it. And yeah, it was very lackluster for me on that end of it. What do you think?
Um,
That's what I was saying.
I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
I the swamp fight from WWE when they had Bray Wyatt versus Braun Strowman? It made me want to go watch that again
Oh
on
my
repeat
God.
because at least then I would have been entertained. I don't understand why she considers herself the Black Widow. I guess it's because she keeps breaking up tag teams.
Yeah. Hmm.
But what does that have to do with her knocking people's food over?
That's what that part of
Like
like
I
her,
don't
like, especially
I don't
guys that she doesn't know because they're just random guys for us. It's not even part of the rosters. It's like when she does it, I'm like, what is it supposed to really accomplish? Because it doesn't make me want to call her the Black Widow by seeing this. So
I
I
don't
was like,
know.
eh,
I
that
don't get the character they're trying to portray with her other than the fact that she breaks up tag teams, which is
yeah.
fine. But and Deonna Purrazzo and her are going to have a great match because they're both talented in-ring competitors. But I mean, Deonna could have a good match with me. Let's be honest here, and I can't wrestle a match to save my life. And I could still have a decent match if Deonna Purrazzo was my opponent. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it'll be a good match, but it
It
didn't make a
just
lot of sense to me.
not only that, but I kept thinking it's like poor Diana having to deal with like something like this to get a match set up. Like really, you could do so much more with Diana Purrazzo, and you're really not. So it's kind of disappointing on that end too. Um, After that, we had your favorite people on screen. We had the good hands, John Skyler and Jason Hodge versus Mickie James and Tommy Dreamer.
You mean the people who
Is
I asked you before the show, who the hell are these guys?
Yeah, those. Yeah, this is just the only thing I didn't like about this match is having Tommy Dreamer involved. I love every part with Mickie being involved, and her diving to the guys outside and that double DDT they did. But towards the end, after Tommy and Mickie win, we have Bully slide into the ring, and he just attacks Tommy Dreamer as Mickie is on the post just celebrating. And as she's coming down and she's trying to get away from him, we have Masha coming in and going after Mickie there to keep furthering up the storyline between them for No Surrender. Um, yeah, the only part I didn't like about this is definitely having Tommy Dreamer involved because I would have done without him. I really don't care about him and his matches. I feel like I was more excited about Mickie facing the guys than anything and getting some kind of revenge a little bit there. Um, Other than that, I was just like, this was okay for me. What did you think?
That Masha feels like the biggest afterthought in the world. That this is all building to Mickie James versus Bully Ray. Like
And
none of this feels like it's building to Masha, which is a
no.
problem considering in 2 weeks you have to sell a pay-per-view with Mickie versus Masha, and it feels like Masha is an afterthought. Masha feels like the heater for Bully Ray in this whole story, which is not how it should be. If this were Masha coming after Dreamer to get to Mickie and Bully Ray was part of it, that would be fun. This feels like Masha is an afterthought, and I honestly can't understand what in the blue hell they're doing between Mickie and Bully. I really can't.
You know what I thought when this was happening though? I kept thinking after this we're gonna get Nick Aldis coming here, Confession Bully Ray. That's the first thing that came to my mind when this was building up since last week for us at least.
We have Barry jumping in thinking, I'm trying to think of a word for this match, and the only one I can come up with is shite. Um, is it just me or the good hands really not that good of hands too, by the way? Like, just saying. I mean, Heath Slater is
No.
the best hand in the business. I mean, you've got a roster of good hands in this company between Heath Slater, and dare I say it, Tommy Dreamer. And you've got people like Dirty Dango, and you've got people like Brian Myers, who are some of the best hands in wrestling. Those 4 guys are probably the best hands in this entire division. And you've got these 2 guys who are okay. Like, way to make your good hands look like absolute garbage. Because, again, Mickie doesn't belong facing off with the men, because I don't fully believe in Mickie beating the men.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it was with Jordynne when she faced off against Cardona. It's not like when it was Tessa Blanchard facing off against Sami Callihan. Those 2 women I full-heartedly believe could be in the positions they were in. Mm-hmm. I wish they would focus on Mickie versus the knockouts and go through this. I'm going to go through and take out some of the best and the brightest that this company has to offer. I want somebody to take my place. And they could care less about that, apparently. Because
no, I didn't.
Yeah, like you said, unless this is Nick Aldis and he didn't show up in the Rumble, so it's very possible this is where he's coming.
Yeah, I kept thinking this is Nick Aldis coming to defend her after like Bully goes after her. This is all I kept thinking when this happened, and when the promo last week, I was listening to it but looking towards the ramp every time I could, because I was thinking this he's coming in anytime now. Maybe now. No, and I was so excited, like thinking he will be it. And I'm like, it's a good build up for him for his introduction, like a reintroduction here, Impact. But other than that, I was like, I don't understand why she's teaming up with Tommy, why she's facing the good hands, why Bully. Like, I get why she like interrupted Bully because he did that to her back again. But like having this match is just how does this help towards the build up with Masha? That didn't make sense to me though.
Yeah, like I said, it just makes Masha feel small.
Yeah.
And that's a shame, because Masha's ultra talented and deserves the stage. And you had Mickie on last at your last pay-per-view. If Mickey's not in the middle of this show, it's a disappointment to the rest of the roster. Because there are so many other matches I want to see on this card beyond Mickie James versus Masha. Which is a crying shame, by the way. But, like, the fact that I want to see opening the card, a match we're going to talk to about, I think, right after this, with Time Machine versus Bullet Club. That match, I think, should be the opening match of this card. And then I think you have to close with Josh versus Rich, because of your 2 world titles. It's the only one that feels like they're actually trying to tell that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I forgot about this part too. Before this happened, we had the interview with Trey, and they're just talking about what happened with Crazy Steve, and the screen behind him just starts changing, and he starts like freaking out because it's Crazy Steve. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that one. There's something super quick that happened.
Trey's an horrible actor, and I don't believe anything about him. He's really not going to be a fan of this show, I'm telling you. Between Cody saying he just doesn't have his name, he's on before the bell or whatever the hell it's called. He's really gonna hate this show
if he doesn't already know about it. And then after this, we had Santino with Siki Dice and Johnny Swinger backstage, and he starts talking about the offer that he got from Scott D'Amore about having to win 50 matches consecutively to get the world title match. And Dango arrives and tells him, your request is denied. And Zigg's like, don't worry, I know of somebody like you can beat to start getting those wins. I do love Ziggy that's just encouraging Johnny Swinger to keep going even after everything. But I didn't think that they had to be consecutively, to be honest. I never thought about that part of it. But I did think it was funny having Dango come in here. He was like, no, this is not happening. And even Santino's like correcting him on the name of the position that he gave him, or like he gave himself at this point. It was a little bit funny. Yeah, the dictator. Did you have any thoughts on that one, though?
This was the most entertaining thing on the show up to this point. Which is sad. Which is really sad, considering we had a decent match between Brian Myers and Dirty Dango. But it felt like it should have been for the Digital Media Championship #1 contender. Like this was entertaining. I really enjoyed this. But then again, I've always enjoyed Santino Marella. Um, Dirty Dango calling himself the deputy dictator of authority is hysterical.
Mm-hmm.
But again, these are the things Impact does well because they know how to be funny and they have guys who are ultra talented at being funny. Like Johnny Swinger is a star. Like he's not a great in-ring wrestler. He's a good hand, but him and Zicky's a star. Zicky could be big, but for some reason they have him paired with Swinger, and they're just content to let him do this. And if he's content doing that, more power to him because it looks like he's having fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he could be built for more. He was the television champion in the NWA.
Yeah. After this, we had a video package of Swan talking about the way his journey to being world champion, and we have little highlights of him like doing the unification for the Impact and TNA Heavyweight Championship, him versus Kenny, in the way they showed like for the Impact and the AEW World Championship, and it was a winner take all match, and him saying like it didn't go the way he wanted it to be. He hoped it would be that night. I think this was something that needed to be done too for the people that hadn't seen anything with Swan before, and I like seeing this highlight about him because I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for being world champion during the pandemic too. I feel like it's one of those people like you kind of forget that he was because of the times, and it's nice to see him getting highlighted the way he was and everything that he did during that time too. Did you have any thoughts on that one?
It's a really good video package for a guy who's not winning a match. It makes I feel for him. It's great, but Rich Swann does very little for me in general. I think he's a talented high flyer, but I don't think he's main event level. I especially think that it was a bad idea having him have the title and going after Kenny Omega. I think that would have been a much better spot if they had Moose. I'll be honest. I've always said that. I'll say it from day one. As much of a dirtbag as Moose can be, I think he would have been much bigger of a better of an opponent for Kenny Omega than Rich Swann. I wanted to forget about the times where the Impact World Champion was best known for being on AEW Dynamite. It was a really good video package. But again, it's about a match that has the most expected outcome. And unfortunately, it's not a story that anybody's super invested in. So it's not even... So you have Sami Zayn versus Roman Reigns. And you have Rich Swann versus Josh Alexander. Both outcomes have the exact same percentages on who's going to win these matches. There's a 100% chance the champion's going to retain, and there's 0% chance that the runner-up, the person who's challenging for these belts, is going to win. And I love Sami Zayn to death, and I think that story's been told perfectly. But if he wins that match, it is the biggest bad decision in the entire world, and you should not, and by any means, allow him to win that match by pinfall or submission. He can win by disqualification, but he cannot win by pinfall or submission. And the same thing with Rich Swann here. If you derail Josh Alexander for Rich Swann here, it is the biggest bad decision since putting the titles on the guns.
Plus for me, it's like Cody and I have been mentioning, is like this has to build up to Josh and Steve Macklin. Like it has to be the plan. So either way, it's like this just feels like kind of like that stepping stone. I don't want to call it that, but kind of like that, towards like Josh having to defend the title at the pay-per-view while Macklin gets that win to be able to face him. And I was like, the only thing I could see it is like if perhaps Steve wins it at the pay-per-view when it happens in Canada, of all places. I was like, that would be a major one for him to win it there at. So it wouldn't surprise me if that does happen, and if that's the plan, if it happens that way. But yeah, after that, we had another one of your favorite people. We had Steph DeLander, aka Pressure Perota from NXT, having her debut versus Jordynne. Yeah, I enjoy seeing her being here. When I first saw the name, I was like, wait, I know this name. And it took me a moment. I was like, oh, Persia. But I like seeing her more like that badass and not that comedy act. Like, I feel like it's a good look on her. And I at least with the promo started, I feel like it's a good start for her. I love the little parts and like through the match of like whenever she does anything to Jordynne gets frustrated that she can't have her the way she wants it. But still, it's like we have Jordynne, who's been in Impact for a while, so Jordynne has to take the win over Steph. But I think either way, even with Jordynne winning at the same time, Steph comes out as a winner because she gets built up in such a way, like such a powerhouse, especially with somebody like Jordynne there in the match with her. I feel like it's a great way to start her being an Impact. I do hope they announce that she signs. I haven't seen anything so far, but I hope so at least. What were your thoughts on seeing Steph Delander, aka Persia?
Steph Delander is great. I always enjoyed her. Contrary to what I may have said, I've always enjoyed her as an in-ring competitor. I didn't love her and Duke as a pair with Index. That being said, her wrestling was never in question. She's a good wrestler. Her and Jordynne had a really fun match here. Yeah, she looks great being wrestling up against Jordynne. She looked like she belonged with Jordynne, which honestly, with some of these girls wrestling some of these Impact, knockouts, doesn't always fit the bill. Impact doesn't always book the match that way. Yeah, she looked great. I hope she continues because she's always been a star. She can be a star, and this is a much better look for her than her previous look in NXT.
Yeah.
We have Barry jumping in. I wouldn't mind Lander signing, but I thought she was average in the match, not very animated in the ring. Yeah, I mean, she wasn't super animated, but wrestling against Jordynne Grace, I kind of liked it. She felt like she was taking the match seriously, as opposed to trying to sell or whatnot. And we'll talk about being a little bit overboard in the women's tag match coming up shortly.
After this, we went back to Cardona and his shenanigans happening tonight. Well, he's talking to the guy about the dressing room, and one of the guys like, well, Hendry gets the cocktails in the dressing room. Is like, I want to find like a dressing room like this. So he's like, the guy's like, yeah, I got you. And he follows him and he opens the door for him and he has him outside. And he's like, but what are you taking me outside for? He's like, well, you did say you'd rather change in the parking lot. So he closes the door on him and he goes, but I don't have my bag. And he just opens the door, throws his bag at him. Again, I thought it was something like, it was funny and it fits what Carter was saying from the beginning. And like Ed was saying, it's something we follow through the night. And this was another one that I feel like it was funny for me to watch. Was it for you as well?
Yeah, it was great. A+. It didn't overlap. It would say it's welcome. Cardona plays it perfectly. The other guy plays a really cool straight guy and does exactly what Cardona says. Perfect.
Yep. After this, we had an interview with Josh and GS asking him about Swan's journey to having this match. And I like how Josh pointed out, he's like, he lost the world title because of the Kenny match, but he never got a rematch. So I feel like this is that rematch for that he never had. And of all people, we had Kenny King interrupted him. And he's like, well, if you're going to talk about a threat, you're not going to talk about Rich Swann. You're going to talk about me instead. And he's like, well, you're handing out, giving titles to friends. And he's like, well, I just had a match with Bully Ray. He's not my friend. He's like, I didn't give him a title shot. I thought it was funny also when he says, your wife is on one way and depends in the relationship. If it wasn't for her, you wouldn't have the title. And I was like, I love that's a good callback to what happened at Hard to Kill as well towards the end in there too. I like this interaction between him and Kenny. I feel like something that could happen, between after Swan or maybe the week after. But I think that was really interesting to watch with Kenny involved in there. What did you think?
Yeah, I love Kenny King. I've said numerous times that Kenny King always seems to get a push, then something happens. The speedball match has put him right in where it should be, and I think him versus Josh would be a nice, fun match for Josh to win on the road to hopefully Macklin. But the way Impact's been building things, I have a bad feeling it's going to be Eddie Edwards.
But yeah, after this we had Killer Kelly and Taylor Wilde versus the Death Dolls. It was Rosemary and Taya. To be specific, we had little bits and pieces of like we had Taylor on the apron through the match, shuffling her tarot cards, and she was like basically focusing more on the cards than the match itself. And there was a point that she has a card and it's a devil card and she just points it at Killer Kelly, and that's when the Death Dolls win the match. Which for me, like the match was in itself was like all right. I was not expecting great because Taylor Wilde was involved in it, and I felt bad that Killer Kelly has to be involved in the situation because it's like you could do more with her than just her being in tag team with Taylor Wilde. I don't know if you have any similar thoughts on that end first.
Yeah, this was pretty bad. Not the match. The match is fine. Taya is probably one of the greatest women's wrestlers in the entire world. not just Impact, but in the entire world. I think nothing but the best of her. Rosemary is fantastic, and I was so much more interested in everything that happened post match because Taylor Wilde made this match unwatchable. That's how much I disliked all the crap that she had going on in her own head at ringside. I have no idea why Killer Kelly wants to be teamed with her. This is pretty awful. But then Father James Mitchell coming out and going on with Rosemary, which is one of the greatest long-term stories in Impact. And it's so great to see him come back from time to time and be like, hey, Rosemary, you've got nothing going on. I've got something for you.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I thought it was funny because before the event started, I saw him walking by and I was like, I wonder how he's gonna be involved in the show tonight. So like to go and continue what Ed's saying, we have Father James Mitchell arrive, and he's like telling Rosemary, well, he starts telling Jessica, you remind me of somebody else that I know, but I can't put my finger on it though. And then he tells Rosemary, you gotta pay respect to my boss, who's your father, and you haven't done that in a while. So he came over to me and asked me, to pay that respect. And he goes, well, he asked me to put a hex on you. And as she's walking up the ramp to like face Father James Mitchell, we have Allison Kay and Marty Bell, aka the Hex, actually attack Taya and Jessica after the match there. And basically just coming back to Impact, I did love that part. It's like I love the reaction from the crowd. The moment that Rosemary started coming up the ramp, I kept my eyes on Taya and Jessica because I knew something was happening in that moment there. And seeing the Hex, I was like, yes. And I kept thinking, this goes back to what I've been saying for like weeks now. They needed to revamp the knockouts in some way. They needed more tag teams to go against the Death Dolls. And I feel like this was a great team to pick to be involved in this. So I was really happy when I saw the Hex arrive tonight at Impact.
Asher, before we get to my thoughts on this, Barry has a question. I think there's a law somewhere that says that Impact can never have more than 2 active women's tag teams at the same time.
That sounds about accurate.
I love the Hex. I think that they are one of the NWA's most overlooked talents. Allison Kay is one of the most traveled and amazing women's wrestlers. She has a great Twitch show too, if you haven't seen her shows. She's constantly looking for a date, and it's some of the funniest things that you can see. She's great. I love her to death. Marty Bell is ultra talented. I remember her as part of, I believe it was the Dollhouse with Mia Yim and Taryn Terrell way back in the day. She's just great. These two together are a really fun team. The NWA is losing something if they don't go back to NWA and they are with Impact now. That's a major loss for the NWA. Not that Billy Corgan will see it that way, because apparently women can't draw. Not my words; those are the words of their former.
I say quote unquote.
Their former world champion via the man who runs the show. That women don't draw, and that's why there's not been an Empower 2. That being said, this is going to be a fun match. I'm assuming we're getting this at No Surrender. So, I mean, we've got 3 women's matches now for No Surrender, which is great because at least for me, as a newer, week in and week out fan of Impact, for me this is great because it shows me a little bit more of what's going on, and I like it because it's an impact. It's more devotion to the women's and the knockouts, which is something you can never get enough of.
Yeah, very true. Right after we had Rosh and Shera backstage, and this is Shera getting ready for his match with PCO, and Eddie just arrives and just basically telling him to get the job done because PCO is the one involved in the match with him. Nothing really major happening there. I'm happy if you thought of anything about this because it was so short and quick.
This was the moment that I knew Mahabali Shera was losing.
Accurate, definitely.
When Eddie Edwards was like, yeah, sure, I'll pay you, just get the job done. I'm like, oh, good. Shera's losing. Cool.
Definitely one of my favorite parts tonight, though. We had the Machine Guns reunited with Kushida backstage, and they're showing him how they have both titles, and they're interrupted by Ace and Bay. And there's like, yeah, well, there's 3 of you, and we know it could be 3 of us. And it's like the BC is never outnumbered. And the guys are like, well, there's 2 of you, like, what's the 3rd one? And I like how he comes in like this, and he's like, well, How about this? So we're gonna get a Kenta going with Ace and Bay versus Time Machine and No Surrender now, which is pretty exciting to think about.
Yeah. It's nice to see Matt Taven Light here, as I call him. I'll break kayfabe a little bit on this one. I love Ace Austin. I think he is one of the most talented young wrestlers in the world. But he reminds me a lot of Matt Taven. And I remember watching a Twitch stream with Twitch streamers, and they would constantly be watching Impact. And every time Ace Austin would come on screen, they would call him NWO Matt Taven. Basically like NWO Sting. He's just a lesser version of the main attraction. And I just it's why I call him what I call him. Him and the Bullet Club makes perfect sense. I think he is a perfect fit. I think Chris Bay is a whole lot less of a good fit for the Bullet Club. I don't understand why he's Bullet Club. I think he's talented. I love him to death, but I don't see him as I don't see him as this big heel gaijin wrestler. Like I just him and Bay him and Ace together are great. But like I don't see why he's a heel. If it were me, I'd have him as a babyface. I think he's much more. I think fans would much rather get behind Chris Bay, especially as your potential world champion. I don't know if he's been one before or not, but he needs to be, because he's as talented as they come, and he needs to be in that division. But yeah, this is going to be a really fun match. I mean, Kenta coming back is always great. We can now see which of the go to sleeps is the better one, whether it be Dijak or whether it be Kenta, because CM Punk is no longer in this conversation.
Nah. Right after this, we have Shera versus PCO. This is just another one that was predictable, as well as Ed was saying earlier. Just the spot that I like the most is when he goes about to do a double choke slam on Rosh and Shera at the same time there. But yeah, just like it's PCO, so I expected him to win, unless Eddie came in and did something when he wasn't going to after what happened with Shera just a few minutes beforehand. So yeah, this PCO, this is a PCO assault, and he wins, so he's now one of the four men going to that contenders match. What did you think?
I mean, PCO is great. I love PCO playing the hits. There's a reason why you bring in guys like PCO. They're to come in, win matches, play the hits, and put over young talent. At some point, he's going to put over Eddie Edwards again. He's done it before. He'll do it again. Him and Eddie are great together, and I have no problem watching these guys wrestle. But the fact that PCO is in a world title picture is, again, laughable. Because there's no reason why I want to say 60 years old. PCO. To put in perspective, I remember watching this man when he was fighting Bret Hart over a friggin' leather jacket. When he was a pirate in WWE in the 90s. That's how long I've been watching PCO, since I was a little boy. And now I'm the age that Bret Hart looked like he was when he was in WWE. He's almost 40.
Right after this, we had again a part of Cardona's tragedy to the day. He had an interview with Gia, and he just talks about how he's had bad luck since being in Joe Hendry. And just as there, we're in the same area that he was at the beginning, where the dressing room was. And he sees Myers with a cocktail, so he's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, drop out the boys' cocktail." So there's a bunch of guys just singing Joe Henry's theme song, and when they go to the clapping part, they have Myers clapping too. And he's like, "Are you clapping with them too?" And he just runs away from Myers. And he's like, "Well, it is a good song. It's a catchy song, though." So I thought it was funny seeing that. I say, like, he did it, and he still smiled when he did it. So I thought it was amazing was to see this interaction between Cardona and Myers before the match even happened. Did you like it too?
Oh, it was great. I love it. Everything about this was funny. And it's all quick. Like, this is no more than 30, 40 seconds, and it's Cardona being just the right level of irritated. Like, it's not like when going back to Trey Miguel, it's not like Trey Miguel freaking out about a logo behind him and Crazy Steve laughing, and Myers clapping and Cardona being just pissed enough to be like, I don't have time for this, and walking away is just perfect.
Yeah. Right after this, we had Callahan and Cass backstage, and Cass is just telling him that he's like happy to be back, and that Callahan is one of the like basically one of the pillars of like Impact Wrestling. And he starts asking him a question, and that's when they have the design come appear behind Callahan. And Diener says, "If you need an answer from him, it has to go through me, though." And he tells Cass, why is this sickness coursing through your veins?" And he's like, Cass is like, "I feel fine." I thought it was a good way to like he didn't laugh, but it was funny seeing him like answer that. And then he just confronts Khan of everybody in the group, and he's like, "Well, if you want to fight, big man, unless you need permission from like your dad, if he will let you, then I kind of like to face you and no surrender." I didn't see a graphic for that one, at least, so that one is not official as of yet. But I thought it was kind of random at first, so I didn't know how to feel about it as of yet. We'll see how I feel maybe sometime later.
I like it.
I
I
know.
thought it was great. That it's good to see the design having something to do other than
Mm-hmm.
Callahan. I like how
Yeah.
Callahan at no point did he even bother looking up at Kaz, which was
Yeah.
nice because it sells the idea that he's part of the design. I still don't think he is, but I like because even Kaz is like, is this a plan? Like, are we doing something here? It's great. I think Kaz is just the right person for the design to absolutely destroy, and to make Callahan try to go through all of his old friends and people that he's known forever. I like that idea. It makes sense. So I see no reason not to have Khan versus Kaz and have the match end with, Sammy hitting a whatever driver 96, or I forget what they called it.
Is it Tiger Driver? I think.
It's well, that's what Tyler Bate calls it. It's essentially the same thing, but I forget what he
Mm-hmm.
calls it. But
Yeah.
yeah, a whole bunch of fun. Everything the design seems to be doing seems to be making me smile, so I'm all in for it. Diener's selling me. Like, he's got this creepy cult leader persona down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sammy commits 1,000%, no matter how crappy the gimmick is. We've seen in NXT when he was Solomon Crow. He committed to Solomon Crow the entire time he was
Mm-hmm.
there. So I like the fact that he's committed to what he's doing.
Yeah.
It makes it feel like it's not a waste of my time. And if it's going to help get Diener over in the end, more power to him.
Yeah, that's true. Well, here we go to our main event. It was Cardona versus Hendry. I gotta say, this definitely like had me when the match first started, when the radio silence happened and the pin like came so quickly after. I was like, this is no way this is happening the way it is right now. But like Henry kicking out of it really quickly, and I like how they put it on commentary, like nobody really kicks out from the radio silence. It's so rare to see. But yeah, there was a part when Myers comes in and he slices championship over to Cardona. The distraction itself is just funny to see because he just goes to like going close, like Henry just avoids him, and Cardona takes it, and he goes for the standing ovation, and that's when Henry wins. But I like how not the same thing happened not once but twice in one night for Cardona, going back to the bad luck that he's saying that he has with Joe Hendry, because then Moose comes in, and he goes to the spear Hendry, and he moves out of the way again, and Cardona takes it as well. So I thought it was a funny like part to add to what he was saying through the whole night of the bad luck he's had. I thought it was funny. I enjoyed the match too. I just like I said, just the beginning of it just had me, and I kept thinking, "Oh no, I don't want him to lose this way." But then again, at the end, he just like, well, since there's no music, let's just put my Cardona's new theme song, and we had it just pitch playing as if everything was ending, and it was fun because that was the end of the taping for us, so we all kept singing as we kept leaving. So I thought it was a fun way to end the show for like the first set of tapings that I went to. What were your thoughts overall on this part, the whole thing?
This was great. I also the crowd does love. It's always fun to do the Moose stuff. Like, Moose is as I'll always say, he's a bit of a dick, but you know what? It's always fun to do the Moose stuff. It's the reason why Diesel had it as a gimmick, because it was a whole lot easier to just do this as a Diesel fan when you were back in the day. Again, I'm a new generation guy, so everything I talk about goes back to the early 90s. That being said, there's so much in this match from Ray Walt. that makes this match worth watching. If not for the in-ring stuff, for just the sheer fun of listening to Ray Wilde try to do somersaults to make sure that neither one of the guys is going to be angry with him afterwards when they listen to the commentary. It was funny hearing him try to not say that he had a terrible time the time he tried to rap on camera when he was part of Rusev Day. I'm assuming that had to do with the New Day. It had to have been something with New Day. Either out of the Usos, one of the two. Mm-hmm. But him trying to make sure that he's like, I love Joe Hendry, but right now it's all about Matt Cardona, but I love Hendry. Was really fun. I bought that near fall right in the beginning. I thought it was going to be Radio Silence 1, 2, 3. It would have been fun. Mm-hmm. It would have been surprising. It would have been a shock end to Hendry's reign. And I think it would have been a good sell to a rematch at the pay-per-view. I wouldn't have hated it. I honestly wouldn't have hated it. The crowd would have. Yeah. The crowd would have absolutely hated it. I think it would have been a fun little idea. But yes, the crowd singing the song as the show goes off the air. Cardona losing his crap. Matt Cardona is fantastic. There's a reason why Matt Cardona is rich. There's a reason why Matt Cardona is the Deathmatch King. There's a reason why Matt Cardona is everything he's been since being Zack Ryder and having True Long Island the True Long Island story. Mm-hmm. This dude knows how to get over with people, whether it's a heel or a face, and he knows how to make sure that people are invested in everything he does. And Joe Hendry's songs are hysterical and funny, and they know exactly how to make him feel like a biggest deal in the world, even if he's their mid-card champion holding their digital media championship. He feels like a big deal, and this match felt like a main event on a show where your world champion cut an interview, where you had your women's world champion in a weird match that happened way weird point in the show. Like, it was all in all, this is a slow show. Like, this is a show that you do in the middle of a taping schedule when you have no idea what your card looks like for the finale. Like, I don't know what comes next in the next 2 weeks heading into No Surrender. You obviously do, because this is the end of the Friday. This is the end of the Saturday taping, right?
No, the Friday ones. Today was the end of it.
Okay, this is the end of the Friday, the first night.
Yeah.
So there's still a second night where it's the next 2 weeks.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And this is all the things that build up right up until the end of No Surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I can't say anything else. Like I said, my other tag team partner doesn't want to get spoiled, so I'm trying to stay quiet.
Hendry's making a digital title matter. He is. He's doing a great job making a digital media title matter. And you know who else makes things matter? Astrid makes things matter. So Astrid, tell us all the wonderful places we can find you this upcoming week.
Well, you can find me doing Taking Over with you on Tuesday. Hopefully, if you're back with me. And then Thursday again now, this time with Cody. Hopefully he's back. Tomorrow, Mel and I will be going live for LWS, talking about the top 5 women to be looking out for from both our perspectives as we watch different wrestling companies too. So I think that will be interesting to see. But yeah, I think you have stuff with OLE happening as well. What do you have going on there?
Yeah, so for me, you can find me on Twitter at EdFries12584. You can find me on Twitch at EdFries2002. You can also find me on our local establishment next weekend, probably on Sunday. Keep an eye out on Twitter. We'll go ahead and give it to you. But you can find me and one of my other tag team partners, Andre C. Me and Andre C will be doing our Marvel Talks as Ant-Man Quantumania comes out this next Thursday. So I won't be watching the show. I'll be in the theater watching Ant-Man, being ready to spoil everything for Astrid before she sees the movie. But if you do like Ant-Man and Quantumania and you like all the Marvel stuff, come watch us. It's going to be me, myself, Andre C., and Ashton Pizarro will hopefully be joining us to go ahead and review the first movie of Phase 5 with Ant-Man Quantumania. Yeah. You can also catch me, like she said, on Taking Over, as I'll be finally back as the COVID is finally gone, and I feel like I'm finally myself again. So, yeah, it'll be great. We do have Barry coming in. Has anyone mentioned what happened to Bhupinder Gujar,
Yeah.
voted one to watch in 2023 at the end of 22. Since then, nothing and nowhere.
No, for
Uh,
what I remember, I don't remember seeing him in the tapings either because I'm just going by the graphics, so I'm not spoiling anything. Next week we have Chris Bay versus Kushida, so this goes back to the Time Machine versus BC match. And then for the qualifying match, we had Eddie Edwards versus Heath Slater. And then we have Kenny King versus Swan and Macklin versus Rhino again to be a qualifying match for then a one contender spot. And so far for the pay-per-view, like we mentioned, we have Time Machine versus Bullet Club happening that got confirmed tonight. Now they added Giselle Shaw and Deonna Purrazzo. They already had Mickie James versus Masha. Obviously, as we know, Josh versus Rich. And then the graphic, they have it half done, obviously, since we haven't played everything up. But based on tonight, we have Brian Myers versus PCO versus the winner of Steve Macklin and Reiner versus the winner of Eddie Edwards and Heath Slater for the number one contender spot. But from what I remember, I haven't seen anything with him in the tapings. I thought it was rare too not to see him in the tapings either. So, hi, Bobby. But yeah, I haven't seen anything from him so far from what I've seen. And basically what I attended to were the whole tapings for February up to No Surrender. So I don't remember watching him there. But I had to double check what I got in my pictures. I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, let me double check. I don't think I have anybody. Well, we have Allison Kay that we can raid. Yeah,
there we go.
sorry.
That'll be great. I just want to say something. Speaking on your, ladies wrestling showcase for tomorrow, how about I give you a quick five that I just thought up right now, right here on the spot.
Oh.
So in the next year, I think the people you should be looking at: Roxanne Perez, Rhea Ripley.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to really have to keep an eye on Kyrie. I think Kyrie's going to be a big star in the next year as she continues to work with Impact. I'm sorry, as she continues to work with New Japan and potentially having her work with Impact, because I think it would be great to bring her over or Mercedes over to do that show that they were talking about in March.
Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about that. March 30th, they announced the New Japan Impact show. So they have the two matches announced so far, which is pretty interesting. Like the way they just came about this too.
And Macklin wants Kenta.
Yes.
I saw that one online. So Kyrie, Rhea, Roxanne. Also give me on the women to watch. Give me Alba Fire. And for an oddball one out there, I want people to watch out for Masha Semovich, because I think coming out of all of this, at some point, Impact is going to figure out what the hell to do with her and how to promote her as a big star. And I think she could be one to watch the rest of the year. Yeah, it was great seeing Steph out there. She's fantastic. I don't think she's on my lists of one to watch, but I always enjoy seeing her when she's on TV.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If you like people like Mariah May, you definitely want to check out our friends Andre C. and Melball Collins on their show on YouTube, because they cover all things New Japan and Stardom, and they have been talking big things about Mariah May. They both seem to think big things are coming for her.
Yep. But yeah, I do have Allison Kay here for the race, so I'm just gonna start setting it up as I want to thank everybody for stopping in tonight. Hopefully Cody will be back next week and we can talk about the next week of Impact going into no surrender. So yeah, really exciting stuff happening there. But yeah, thank you everybody. Well, hopefully we'll be back next week.